Riley, we'll look at a 20-point win for Auburn and feel like they handled business against a 16 seed the way that they should, 83 to 63. But this game was much shakier than that.
It like that first half in particular was, I mean, Auburn went up big early, kind of as you would expect. They were up by as many as 13, and then Alabama State just started chipping and chipping and chipping and cut it to a 2-point game at one point with 3 minutes to go. They actually got it to one. Sorry, I
Yeah.
misspoke with under 2 minutes. And like Auburn is really lucky that Miles Kelly was on a heater, as he's done multiple times this year. He bailed him out. He seemed like the only one who kind of came like ready to play that first half. He like really quiet game from Janai Broom. Chad Baker-Mazara 1 for 9 from the floor. That's not going to get it done. But again, sometimes I feel like this happens a little more frequently in 1 versus 16 games than people realize because they usually end up lopsided results. And Kenny Smith had a good point saying this at halftime, where he's like, "Hey, if you beat a team by 5 every 5 minutes, then that eventually results in every 10 minutes. I'm not good at math. That results in a 20-point win." And I was like, okay, that actually makes it sense when you break it down that way. But in the preview for this, we were saying we want to see Auburn come out like throwing haymakers from the jump and get on this team early.
Mhm.
And it felt like it took like halfway through the second half to really see some characteristic Auburn traits.
Yeah.
Um, I made some notes like Denver Jones had an and one on a putback with under 15 to go to put Auburn up 18. It was those moments where it's like, okay, it's not just our bigs that can get in the mud around the basket a little bit. Like we need Denver Jones crashing the glass, making a toughness play. Shortly after, Dylan Cardwell had a massive dunk that was like, this is the Auburn team that we saw for most of the year that was so good at overwhelming opponents with their size in the paint and using that flex action to get really easy looks at the rim and then having great spacing around it too. Like we saw semblances of it. It just is still alarming to just to not feel like it's really cohesive. We're not getting those games where we're seeing Auburn go against either some good SEC teams that they would still handle by 15 to 20. Definitely any middling or bad SEC teams, they were just annihilating, and it felt like such a complete performance. And I'm still left just like wanting more from the Tigers based on their past, I guess, 5 games now.
Yeah, and that's why I think it was important for them to not have the first half that they did. There's no doubt that they are the better team, and they were probably going to find a way to win no matter what, right? But because you came into this having lost three of your last four, because you had looked inconsistent, because you had not always shown the energy you showed the first 25, 26, 27 games of the year, I wanted to see that. You wanted to
Mm-hmm.
see some more of that in this game, and you didn't. It still took them a while to get into the game. Miles Kelly, if he wasn't hitting seven threes, I think they could have potentially been in a danger zone here. Um, Chad Baker-Mazara no showed. Denver Jones played good defense and had 6 assists in this game, but he's not somebody that um, his defense didn't necessarily matter too much in this game
Mm-hmm.
because Alabama State didn't have anybody who could really go after you. Um, it was just another kind of like meh performance.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, to even put that into greater context, I keep harboring on the easy baskets because, like, again, for 90% of the season, I thought the one thing you could bank on Auburn 100% of the time was they were going to be just dominant around the basket and they were going to
Yeah,
make it like effortless. They scored 30 points in the paint. Alabama State scored 28. They
yeah.
only won they won the rebound advantage by 10. I I can't say that's like great. I don't like for a team like against a SWAC team that has no size, win it by 20,
They
like
turned it over 12 times. They lost the turnover battle. For a team that is supposed to be as active as they are, you only forced Alabama State into 10 turnovers.
Alabama State, I think, takes care of the ball decently for a SWAC school, but SWAC schools also love turning it over. That's like a staple. Like that is
That's what they
SWAC
do.
basketball. Yeah, SWAC basketball is a high pace with a bunch of turnovers on both sides. Like they play pressure heavy defenses. So yeah, to see that was shocking to me too. And I mean, I will say, like to Alabama State's credit, Tony Madlock doesn't fear anybody. Amar Knox does not fear anybody.
Yeah.
I like Amar Knox was chirping. He was knocking down big shots, and you would not. He certainly thought they were going to win that game, which I respect a ton. I respect the confidence, and we
Yeah.
mentioned that in the preview that Madlock definitely he didn't go full Tobin Anderson, which seeing Tobin Anderson now is like maybe you don't want to go full Tobin, but like
That
he was.
that's an Iona problem. I don't think that's a Tobin Anderson
It's
problem.
a good point. It's a good point, but yeah, I guess that's usually the best thing you can say about these 16 seeds when they play the one is like they showed fight. Uh,
Yes.
they hung in there.
They played
They
hard.
they played hard and they had guards that chirped, which at least made it a little bit entertaining. But yeah, this I think I'll know it when I see it with this Auburn team if we see them return to form. Like give me a 15-0 run. Maybe they yeah, their
Yeah,
largest
like
run in this one was 9-0. They didn't even get a kill shot. Shout out to Evan Mia.
if you go in and check the boxes for Auburn, right? You need a solid Jedi Broom game, 14 and 11, sure. Against the 16 seed, yeah. You got 16 from Todd Pettiford. You want that. Yep. You had somebody else in the backcourt give you a big offensive game. Yep. Miles Kelly. These are all things we've talked about this year that are like necessary things for Auburn. Done. You had Chaney Johnson step up in a way that him and Dylan Cardwell had not previously and during this stretch. So you're like checking that box. Like, okay, all the things Auburn needs to do, or at least the main things, are all done. And it still was like not great,
Hmm.
which I think is the concerning part.
Yeah, this is where, I invite any Auburn fans to chime in. Like if you think we're being too hard on the Tigers, I want to know what Auburn fans are feeling like after seeing their team just like dominate dominate opponents for most of the season. Maybe I am being too hard because you can question like when they build a 24-point lead that they let off the gas at all. But I just wonder if Auburn fans are also feeling like it's looked a little sloppy at points, or like the same attention to detail on the defensive end just hasn't quite been there, or if it's more so like, we're not overreacting still. We're
Yeah,
still
look, I mean, I
we're
mean,
not
I
really
think it's
close.
important to note for Auburn fans too. Auburn's goal is not to beat Alabama State.
Yeah,
Like
that's
Auburn's goals are this is on the way to the goals. This is
mhm,
not the goal. And when you set a standard for yourself for 29 games, and then you spend the next five not consistently hitting that, there's this what the conversation is going to be is can you get back to that, right?
right,
Because just
right.
looking at it at this game, they won by 20, they were up by 24, they were fine, right? But the conversations around Auburn, just like the conversations around Duke, conversations around Houston, conversations around Florida, are not about this game, just this game.
Mhm,
It's how this game applies to a Final Four run, a national championship run. And so
mhm.
that's the lens you and I are looking at this through, I think, right?
Yeah,
Is getting back to that level.
100%. Yeah, well, I'm with you completely, and I think that's the standard that they established at the start of the year. That's generally been the standard that they've played to under Bruce Pearl. Is not just like you make a Final Four; those are the expectations that come with it.
Yeah.
You keep getting top four seeds; those are the expectations that come with it. Last thing I wanted to at least make sure we touched on before we wrap this one up. A little bit of injury attrition for Auburn in this one too. Dylan Cardwell, he sat for a solid 9 minutes in this one in the second half, or excuse me, only played 20 minutes this game, but exited the game, I think, with 13 minutes left and sat on the bench for 9 straight minutes and looked like he hurt his knee or might have tweaked it. And then Chris Moore was another one. I think he also suffered a knee injury. They showed him sort of running around the lockers trying to get right. Never want to be insensitive to injuries or anything. Moore is definitely more of like the glue guy, whereas I guess Cardwell's also like just the supercharged glue guy, but I think Cardwell's really important to what this team does on both ends of the floor. I think he's the
Yeah.
high-low passing, his ability to make reads at the top of the key and guard multiple positions is huge. But yeah, just got to get your thoughts on that before we wrap this one up.
I don't know if Auburn can beat the teams in the Elite Eight, Final Four, if they're not 100%. Unless they're getting everything like top level play from everybody else, which is in
Hmm.
their own possibility, right? Um, Seems like for the most part they're okay. Seems like Cardwell's okay. Like seems like that's fine. Just I think it's something to monitor because we'll get into this in our Creighton preview, which is on the channel. So make sure you go check that out, Creighton and Auburn. Um, I think they can get past Creighton without being their best, but Creighton's good enough to beat them if they're bad.
I think I'm with you. Yeah, I actually think. eh, I think you can get away with like a Broom and Cheney Johnson front court against Creighton, but once you get to the Sweet 16 and beyond, you need Cardwell healthy. Like
Yeah,
I don't
100%.
want I want Cheney Johnson in like that 15 to 17-minute sweet spot as opposed to like
Yeah,
filling the Cardwell role. But yeah, I think good point. This stuff, especially like it's a game of March that's won by the smallest of margins in March, and yeah, just really hope both those guys get healthy quickly.
absolutely.
It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.